Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys an update to my Runick Spright deck. Runick Spright has just been seeing a lot more play lately. Just sort of like Spright in general is just a little bit better now that Tearlaments as well as Bestials are just sort of out of the package. It's just overall a really great rogue deck right now, or you could even probably say a tier 2 deck. But overall, I really like this deck because it also is able to main deck Lava Golem, which is super duper popular right now. So overall, I just think that this is a really solid deck to be able to bring to locals or even a regionals possibly. Overall, it just takes a lot of practice to be able to run this deck and to be able to close out games. Overall, it's really easy to run the combos and everything, but closing out the games is overall the hardest part. But anyways, let's get on into the profile, but please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, and also consider joining the Patreon or checking out all of the other affiliate links in the description down below, just to help to support the channel and get more involved. So anyways, we are running 3 copies of Spright Blue, pretty standard. You want to be running 3 copies of him, and really you want to like play a pretty heavy Spright engine because it's really crazy with how grindy the duels get, how quickly you can actually run out of the Spright engine. So that's why I like playing 3 copies of Blue and 3 Jet. So some people sometimes cut Jet down to 2, but overall I still really like being able to play these maxed out. Then getting on into 2 copies of the Red. 2 Red is just really nice because, again, in the grind game, it's just nice to be able to get to this on your second turn to be able to, like, because usually, like, the first Red just always ends up getting destroyed, especially without having Spright Elf nowadays. So yeah, with the loss of Spright Elf, overall, I think it's just better to have the 2 copies of Red for the grind, and then 1 copy of Carrot is really all you need. I did end up cutting Pixies because overall, you just don't have a battle phase with this deck, so Pixies really is not necessary, and you just don't have the space. We're playing 1 copy of Iperia and 1 copy of Capshell, kind of like our pseudo Sprites, just sort of for our draw engine. The name of the game with this deck is all draw, like just draw into as many of the Runick cards as you can. And it's overall just really solid. Really, you don't even care when your Spright engine is gone, because as long as you're holding the tempo of the game, your opponent just isn't going to be able to get enough advantage over you, because you're going to be able to like draw 2 or 3 cards every single turn with your Runick Fountain, which is just insane. Then lastly, for our monsters, 3 copies of Lava Golem, as I mentioned. Maining 3 copies of Lava Golem is just overall really insane. Getting on into the spells, we're playing 3 copies of Spright Starter. Just overall really great to be able to play this. You sometimes want to side these out when you're going into time because you just don't want to see them. I've had that in like in the the recent present. I was at locals this last weekend and I forgot to side out my starters, and that was just a dead card in my hand and I just couldn't do anything. Or I still could do stuff, but I just could not use that card. 1 copy of Spright Smashers is going to be our last of the Spright spells to be able to get into or banish some of our opponent's stuff. Just overall a really great tech option. Then we also have our 2 copies of Runick Fountain. You really just need the 2, but sometimes it really stinks when you do run out of the 2 copies and you can't get you can't like recycle all of your stuff. Then it's basically game over. 3 copies of the Runick Tip. Definitely want to be playing 3 copies of this. At locals this last weekend, I just kept picking this off the top so much. Tip off the top always just feels so good. Then we're going on into 3 copies of Freezing Curses, the imperm of the deck. 3 copies of Flashing Fire, which is going to allow you to destroy a special summon monster that your opponent controls. And then 3 copies of Runick Destruction. This is your trifecta of like the best 3 of the cards. Destruction really solid right now because of Labyrinth and all that stuff out right now. Overall, just feels great to have this in the main deck as well. Then getting on into 3 copies of Slumber, also just a great card. If you don't have a good target on your opponent's side of the field, you can still always just use Slumber on your turn to be able to proc the effect of your Runick Fountain. So that's just why people play the 3 copies of Slumber. 1 copy of Dispelling. You could argue to play this at 2. Overall, this card is pretty great. I've seen a lot of people bumping it up to 2, but I just didn't have enough room because now we're getting into more of my tech options for the deck, which is going to be 1 copy of Metal Foes Fusion, 1 copy of Triple Tactics Thrust, and then 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent. This is a nice little draw engine here in the deck. I was originally playing this as 2 copies of Metal Foes Fusion and 1 copy of Called by the Grave. I believe I picked this up from MST TV, playing the 2 Metal Foes Fusion, but I decided to change it up and just go for the 1 copy of Thrust to like substitute as the extra copy of Metal Foes Fusion, because overall it's just really nice to be able to have this little engine in here with the Metal Foes Fusion. The reason why it's in here is because if you use something like Slumber or Destruction, any of the Runick spells on the second effect to special summon a Runick from your extra deck, you summon out the Hugin, get Hugin out, and then it's going to make you discard a card. So there's nothing really great in the deck to discard anymore, especially because of the fact that we lost Elf. So you don't really want to set up any of your sprites in the graveyard. So you'd rather pitch Metal Foes Fusion off or out of your hand and then be able to recycle it to draw another card. So like I said, the name of the game with this deck is just all draw power. So if your opponent does end up hand trapping you or something, you can go into Thrust. Thrust can get you Talent, or if you've already seen Talent or it's just not that optimal, you can always pick up Metal Foes Fusion and keep recycling it. And let's say that you go through your Talent already and you have Thrust. Well, Metal Foes Fusion should always either be in your hand, your graveyard, or in your main deck, and it's mainly going to be in your main deck, so you're going to be able to recycle it all the time. So it's hardly ever going to be in your graveyard. Unless it's a dead card in your hand, this Metal Foes Fusion is always going to be a live target for your Thrust. And then lastly, another Thrust target is one copy of Double Cross. If you guys don't like this engine, again, you guys can just go to 2 copies of Metal Foes Fusion and 1 copy of Called by the Grave, but I really, really like how this is looking right now. So that is a solid 40 card deck. I just want to keep it at 40 because you want to get to those Runick cards as fast as possible and then be able to mill your opponent out. Then we're going into 3 copies of the Hugin. Hugin is just super necessary for the deck. I really like it at 3, and overall you can end up going through all 3 copies very easily. Then we're playing the 1 copy of Jerry, and I also opt to play 1 copy of Frecky. This card has saved me in multiple duels, and I think it's pretty crazy that people don't use it. But with this card, basically, neither player takes battle damage involving this card. So it's just really nice to be able to get this out as a 2000 attack body. And during the grind games against this duel, generally, like if you are grinding, your opponent's going to get out 1 or 2 guys that has a lot of attack. And a lot of the time, it's just going to be like 1 big guy, and then they're going to have a couple smaller guys, maybe. And so generally what you can do is you can get out the Frecky, put him in attack position during your opponent's battle phase, and then protect him with a card like Slumber. And then Slumber is going to be able to trigger your Fountain, and then you're going to be able to recycle stuff. And then Frecky's just going to still sit there in the battle phase, and your opponent isn't going to be able to battle over him with the rest of the little guys. It just comes up a lot to where you're going to be able to utilize him. Then we're going on into 2 copies of Gigantic Spright. So you guys will actually notice I'm playing 5, 5, and 5 of the fusions, 5 XZs, and 5 Link monsters. So Spright, Gigantic Spright is overall really great. Mannequin Cat, a really nice little tip with Mannequin Cat is the fact that with the Mannequin Cat, you can be able to bring a monster back from your opponent's graveyard. If your opponent is playing Kashtira and they only end on the Arise Heart, you can still use Mannequin Cat to bring another monster to their side of the field and then tribute it off with Lava Golem, which is just super duper cool to be able to do that. Generally, to get into that play, you have to special out a Runick into the extra monster zone, special out a Spright, and then go into Mannequin Cat. But overall, it's just a great play. 1 copy of the Soul Sweeper and 1 copy of Gin Buster. 1 copy of IP Masquerena, 1 Akashic Magician. Again, with the Lava Golem, you can put the Lava Golem into the zone in front of the extra monster zone, special Akashic right to it, and then bounce your Lava Golem back into your hand, which is just really insane. So you can just keep looping it. And then your opponent is just going to be like feeling really threatened because they know that if they put out 2 monsters, they're going to get Lava Golemed again next turn. 1 copy of the Muckracker, 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn, and then 1 copy of Unchained Abomination. Kind of goes in with the Fiend package because you do get locked into Fiends with the Muckracker. But that's it for the extra deck. I will quick show you guys what I have been siding with this deck. Overall, it's been doing pretty decent at locals. I think now that I'm a little bit more practiced with the deck again, I think I will be doing a little bit better with this one. But 3 copies of Nibiru for the Kashtira matchup and certain other ones, along with Dark Ruler No More just for a good board breaker. Sort of in a flex spot, we have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. This could be Book of Eclipse or whatever you're playing as ways to also break boards. But overall, Droll and Lockbird at this format just feels really good because there's just so many decks that search multiple times, so I really like it. Then we're getting on into 3 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is also just really great this format. 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, again, if you're going up against those Labyrinth decks. 1 copy of Chaos Hunter to summon out with your Mannequin Cat, as well as 1 copy of Red Resonator for a Mannequin Cat target with the Lava Golem, or to go into from your Gigantic Spright. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This has been a really fun deck to be able to pick back up, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Again, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I would really appreciate it, and we will see you guys for the next profile. Peace.